So, Camden, we're talking about failure. I've failed a lot in my life. You've probably failed a number of times in your life, and
Yeah.
I'm sure like the common sentiment that everybody has kind of heard about this topic is, at least on social media and everything like that, is failure is either something you can feel shameful about or it's something that can help you grow. But I kind of want your opinion on school and how a lot of our audience right now is in school, whether in high school or college. But how does school shape your perception of failure? What do you think about that?
Well, it definitely makes me remember the insecurities that I had. School was definitely my biggest insecurity growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was something that I wish that I was good at, something that I wanted to be good at, but it was something that I never really felt until I got to college that I really felt like that I was that.
Mm-hmm. And you have a master's degree now.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's another story, but yeah, I mean, I think the bigger reason why I even chose to pursue college was because of this feeling of inadequacy, and I wanted to overcome that.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I think comparison in high school was just really something that robbed me from a lot of joy, just knowing that like I didn't understand, much like any other sport. Academics is something that if you just continue to put time and effort into, and also if you have parents that value education, they're going to put you in environments to where you will be more inclined to understand and comprehend different concepts. And my parents valued education, but let's just say athletics and dance was definitely more important to us. So I was homeschooled for most of my life, so
wow.
It was more about let's just go to dance and then we'll do homeschooling after type of thing. So the priorities weren't really straight, but
right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, some families have their kids where academics is the number one thing, and so it makes more sense for these kids to get really good grades on their ACTs and SATs, where for me I didn't. So I didn't really understand that you can't really judge everyone based upon their score because you have no idea how far they came.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that concept until I got to college. So, but yeah, school was definitely something that was really hard for me.
It's so true. In college, you meet so many different people, and they come from so many different backgrounds, and they're there for different reasons, that you really get more of that perspective on, oh, you can still not just have the priority of academics and get into college. In a lot of ways. Like, people are there for athletics. People are there for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
I had more of I feel like a typical school upbringing. I went to public school from like K all the way through 12, but I chose to do AP courses in high school, and I did complete the IB program, which is an international program. Actually, it's designed for military, but they do the same curriculum all over the world. So I could have moved anywhere in the world to like Japan from Florida, and I would be doing the same thing that the kids in Japan would be doing. So it was interesting because throughout my whole school career, I feel like I went through so much growth, but all in all, like, it was all about academics, and failing to me was just the worst thing that could happen. I was just so scared to always get a bad grade, and I was really operating out of fear. It was like, I was always scared to get a bad grade, so I would always try to get a good grade, and when I inevitably would eventually get a bad grade, because we were in school, and school's for learning, and something we learn here in LEAD is if you're learning something for the first time, it's usually okay to completely fail at it because it's new. It makes sense. Like, if you've never done something, why would you expect to be perfect the first time?
Yeah.
But for me, it was just always this, like, I just had this fear all the time of getting a bad grade, and then I would just feel shameful and embarrassed because I would just be really hard on myself. And school can sometimes subconsciously teach us that.
Yeah.
And inadvertently, a lot of, going to school and the school systems, I'm not saying every school does this, but you learn from your peers, you learn from your teachers and the people around you that getting a failing grade on something is a bad thing. Where in the real world, when you graduate from school, even college, when you graduate from college, it becomes, the world just opens up. There's just so much more than just passing and failing. There's so many in-between things, and it's all about your perspective. So that's something that I really had to learn coming out of grade school and into college, just fixing my relationship with failure and what that actually means. Because what is the truth about failure, Camden? We both did the Southwestern Advantage internship where we purposely put ourselves in the position to fail over and over and over again, back to back, in a very rigorous program. But what did you learn about failure through that?
Yeah. Well, failure for me, Noelle, was my biggest coach. Like, it was what gave me the most feedback. There was actually a sense of like almost peace knowing that the more I fail, I know that the closer I am to succeeding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was almost encouraged in this internship that we fail the most.
Yes.
And that those who fail the most will end up winning.
Winning the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy,
so
huh?
It definitely changed my perspective because growing up, like for you, academics was really important and you were good at it. For me, academics was important, but I was bad at it. So we were both like, we didn't want to accept failure, but for me, I almost got to a point where I was just so used to it. Like I always felt that I'm just inadequate. Like education, academia isn't malleable for me. We make up these irrational thoughts of like trying to justify our understanding of why I'm bad at something.
Yeah.
But nothing can be further from the truth. I mean, failure is, if you change your perspective of it, it can be your biggest lesson. It can be your biggest way of feedback to understand how to adjust. And now in the real world, where we're both in a career, failure is more of a way to make an adjustment.
Correct.
Rather than you're fired. It's like
Yeah.
we're our final grade for an exam.
Right.
That is the end result.
Yes.
Where in the real world, it's much more of a learning curve.
It's so much more fluid in a way. I mean, there are mistakes that you can make that'll lead you to, inevitable something catastrophic might happen. But in most circumstances, on a day-to-day basis, failure is just, like you said, an opportunity for us to change course or adjust what we're doing, or just think about something a little differently.
Yeah.
Really a learning opportunity, and that's the opportunity in failure if you choose to see it that way.
Yeah. I think the biggest failure is you not stretching yourself, being put in situations where you won't fail.
That's a really great point to bring up, because I think a lot of us, maybe up to this point in school, if you're in high school, if you're in college, you might be pretty comfortable with what you're doing. Especially if you've gotten into a university and you're going that route and you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or someone who has to be very well educated in their craft. There is that, like, I'm really good at what I'm doing. I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. I'm going to stay here in my comfort zone and not risk doing something new.
Yeah, totally. I have a couple of friends that are very successful at what they do.
Yeah.
And if you get them outside of that comfortability,
they turn into different people.
Well, they refuse to participate.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a place where you can become comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's a place where you can learn how to, I guess, laugh with the failure. And so many times, it sounded like this was maybe the route that was inevitably going to be for you, which ended up changing. But if we have our identity wrapped up in being successful, and then we end up not being successful, then that's a whole different bag.
Oh yeah.
Of like figuring out who you are. But I think the reality is that the way that you respond to failure is more important than just being successful at that thing, because we're all going to fail in something.
Exactly. Yeah, that attitude towards failure is something you need to practice. I think that's something really important that you said, because if you don't practice how you fail, you might be a very sore loser, and you might be too scared to then venture out of your comfort zone again, when we know the constant in life is change.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be forced out of your comfort zone, or you're going to choose to go out of your comfort zone. Well, if you're not choosing to go out of your comfort zone, at some point in your life, you're probably going to be forced there.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have a really good relationship with failure. Failure is some people's like biggest fear, just overall. But it's really not failing at the thing that they're trying to accomplish that scares them. It's everybody else around them and the feeling of being ashamed or letting somebody down, or just not living up to an expectation, and then some really bad thing happens because of it in their relationships, where maybe you fail and your friend makes fun of you, or it's embarrassing, or, you know, oh, I knew you couldn't do it. And it's really just the bad part of your self-talk talking to you. But can you shed some light, Camden, on just the reality of those feelings? What do you think about, is it really just a feeling, failure, or is it a perspective, or is it something else?
Yeah. Trying to achieve anything that was outside of my comfort zone or anything that was outrageous was really limited by how I think that I would be perceived by other people if I did fail, you know? And sometimes I didn't even want to try things because I knew that if I did try and I did fail, then that would be more hurt on my ego than I would actually, or my perception of other people's thoughts of me would be more detrimental to me than my own thought, you know? So I think sometimes it's comfortable for us to stay in a place where we know that we're strong, we know that it's predictable in this certain environment, and we've spent enough time practicing to where we can adjust to circumstances within the environment. But yeah, I think being willing to try something new it speaks volume of how much courage someone actually really has, knowing that it could be at the expense of someone else's opinion.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So I do think failure can be an emotion. But man, your perspective of how you see it can set you free, or it can really bind you.
Yeah, we've learned here in Lead a lot about perspective, and how so much of the things we teach is all contingent on having the right perspective around things like your vision, scheduling, everything that we've talked about so far. I think one thing that comes to mind when thinking about feelings around failure is just not being enough. And for me, it's like a self-validating like circle. Like, I don't think I'm enough. Now I'm going to try this thing, and now I'm going to validate that, yep, that didn't go that well.
Or the other way, where you do achieve it, and now you think you're validated to be enough. That's
true. And so it's actually not the healthiest thing to hang your hat on all your successes and failures. It's truly like it comes down to what are your values, and enjoying the process of what you're doing and living out your purpose. And then the successes, the failures, really the emotional roller coaster of it all kind of just falls to the wayside.
Yeah. And, you know, I find that so Brene Brown did some research on failure and fear. And she found that her synopsis of her study was, we're all yearning to feel loved and belonged, you know? And that's just like the core of who all of us want. We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel that we belong to something or someone. And she did a study on these kids where some of these kids felt like those that did not have any love or belonging went to great lengths to achieve something to help them, or help the insecurity to feel the love and belonging. And then you have the second group, who are kids that know that they're loved and they have the belonging that they need. And the outcome between the two kids, the ones that knew that they had a love and belonging structure in their life, weren't afraid to fail because they knew that they were going to be accepted regardless. And the ones that didn't have that background, they were striving for significance from a result that they wanted to obtain. knowing that at the risk of that, if they don't accept it or they don't achieve it, then that foundation of love and belonging isn't going to be there regardless.
Right.
You know?
Right. They wouldn't have that true foundational support.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge. And that's so important. It ties into self-awareness and how important it is to do that work and know, and this would be probably something in more of like a psychology sense, not really something we discuss here in LEAD, but really making sure you know where your desires are coming from, to be able to attribute that stuff.
It's just so true for all athletes and for all students. Like, you are able to achieve more when you know that the source of love and belonging isn't subject to change based upon circumstances of you obtaining something or not.
Yes. It's not results-based love, right? And you're not loved because of what you do or what you produce. That's really important for us to hear. So thank you for that. I think comparison can be, has a larger piece of the conversation here with fearing failure too. Because a lot of times in school, we have all around us a bunch of your classmates are doing the exact same thing you are. And there's a clear distinction between who does well and who doesn't. And when you're all graded on the same scale, some people do better than others just because. And some people have to work harder for the same thing that others don't have to work as hard for. So how would you say that translates to, like, after you graduate, real world stuff? What would you say about that?
Well, I think it's a natural tendency because we're raised in an environment of academia where we're judged based upon our scores. And so that mentality is definitely bled into the workplace. It's bled into our relationships. It's bled into every aspect of our lives. And so I think once someone realizes that the results of what I do should not dictate, or the results that you do, you know, based upon the results, that the lack thereof or the achievement that you have, shouldn't determine how much that I'm attracted or how much I appreciate, right? So I think that's just a self-awareness of, like, where it's sometimes hard for us to adapt that same love that we want into the way that we can actually love ourselves. Because we're so accustomed to, how can I achieve X? And then now that I feel better that I did this, then everyone else will appreciate me. It's just this never-ending rat race of
it's a rat race,
seeking validation, and have to do something to get it.
Yeah, I think what's so important that you said there, it never ends, right? So this isn't something that just stops when you graduate college, graduate high school, get into the workforce. This concept is something that 50, 60-year-olds are still wrestling with. It's something that maybe they never developed the self-awareness, maybe they never did the work to know that this is where I'm operating from. And a lot of times, as we've talked about here in LEAD, when you don't do the planning, when you don't do the vision casting, when you don't do the smarter goal setting, all the things that we've set everybody up for to be successful and have a real vision and a direction, you can just accidentally fall into these things, fall on your behaviors, fall on your habits that you accidentally developed. And that's what we're trying to prevent here, by giving the perspective of it's okay to fail. And perspective on all of these things is so important, and make sure that you're learning from your failures on what to do better next time.
Yeah, it's so important to, when in times that you do fail, to recognize who's by your side when you do, and to invest in those relationships when you do fail. You know, because those are the ones that actually love you, and that they'll actually go through that season. You know, especially for an athlete or an individual sport like track or anything like that. Like, you're going to have seasons where you perform better than others, you know, and just to have the relationships that are constant regardless of what happens or not.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Camden. I really appreciated the conversation, and I know our audience did too, about facing failure.